I was aware of him winning freedom, of coming back. I had no knowledge of the spy exchange. I didn't know about any of the characters that were involved. I didn't know there was a spy that went back the other way. I didn't know that there was an exchange on a bridge. I didn't know anything about that. You know, his sensibility are defined by three things that I recognize, only one of which is in the film. The first was his prosecution of the Nuremberg war crimes, in which he was I think a naval judge adjutant general. He's working for the JAG office, and hey, that's just a ton of work. The able aspect and the thing, and then later negotiating with the Cubans in order to get the prisoners of war from the Bay of Pigs disaster released. You know, this takes a man who is willing to go deep, 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 deep into the nuts and bolts of the law. And that requires a very special kind of attention, energy, but also faith in the nuts and bolts of the law that he had. And at the end of the day, my job was to make that evident in every opportunity I had. Steven's ability to tell important story moments just by what he does with the camera is the reason he's Steven Spielberg. He's done it again and again and again. I was 10 years old in 1966, and I'm going to say every day, in one way or another, we were told, we were educated that there were bad guys on the other side of the world. And they put up an iron curtain to keep their people in and to keep us out. And they were hell-bent on destroying our way of life and making us live the same way they did. And in 1966, if you had told me at some point there would no longer be a Soviet Union and there would no longer be an Iron Curtain, I would have said, you're insane. That's here forever. That's never going to go away. So it is locked down in this time in which, as when I was growing up and becoming a socially aware, human being, that every adult had an opinion of this. Every adult had to worry about this. It was part and parcel to our way of life, that we had to live and be better human beings and stewards of the world, because there was this other anti-version of life, anti-version of government, anti-version of freedom that existed that was trying to take us over. There was this massive, monolithic, constantly accepted border on the planet Earth, our side versus their side, us versus them. And, it was omnipresent. It was everywhere. And it played out on almost, on a geopolitical scale, because we had then Korea, which was a battlefront in that us versus them. There was Vietnam that was coming to be the place. There was the space race that was us versus them. It was a race in which if we lost, it was going to be a bit of a tragedy, because then the bad guys would win. We saw versions of it all the time. And it was mysterious to me. I couldn't figure out how things worked over on that. They looked like us. They dressed sort of like us. And yet they spoke this language that sounded like ours backwards. And they had this alphabet that looked like ours, looked like a gibberish version of ours. So I always had this great fascination for what goes on in the head of them. As I grew up, I was always trying to educate myself more and more into the difference between the West and, well, it's not the East, and what was on the other side of the Iron Curtain. A union between a man and a woman at that time, particularly, if you were Catholic, there was two ways in order to go about it. You're married and there's nothing you can do about it, because you got to stay married. Or you're married and you truly are partners in absolutely everything. That The wife can be blatantly honest with the husband, vice versa, and the kids. And I think this was, this is what Amy brought to it as a piece. The woman who is all knowledgeable about what her husband thinks, how he's going to act, and what he's going to have to, at the end of the day, do and be supported by. There's no woman in the world who's going to like their husband taking a job who's going to send a bullet, and because of it, is going to send a bullet through the house. That ain't the point. But there, on the other side, if there is the sense of, I am going to trust this man I am married to for the rest of existence in order to see us through us and take care of it. Amy as an actress is so, working with her was always a miracle, because I was always thinking of that, she's hardly doing anything and yet she's doing everything all at the same time. I gotta learn how to do that. As a married couple, as parents, and as a dad that goes off and is an insurance lawyer for his thing. Their lives were full, and aggressively so. Their lives were not things where, some people are married and they just try to make ends meet and it's one damn thing after another. I think they were, the Donovan family was an aggressive unit as far as saying, no, there's a reason we're going through this, and there's a way in order to come to see it through, whatever the challenge is, with more than just success, but also with a family honor, and that will demonstrate who we are. I thought that might have been embellished for the sake of a movie. It wasn't. Somebody shot at him. Somebody sent a bullet into their house. The family did. At the time of the Red Scare, and there's a substantial amount of fear and ignorance that went into it. But he was viewed as a traitor to the American cause, simply by being a lawyer, giving a man what everybody has a right to under due process of law. That ends up being, I think, sort of like the fabric of the aspect of the movie that I think is palpable, is that there is always some degree of the forces of ignorance and the forces of prejudice, or for lack of a better word, that are always going to jump to conclusions, that are always going to clarify someone's motivations as being good or bad. And in the course of Donovan and what he did here, he came a bunch of people who thought he was a traitor. And that was, he wasn't cowed by it. He thought they were idiots for thinking that, because, again, he comes back to the thing of, hey, I'm embodying the aspect of America by defending this man. You can't beat the facts, and I think more often than not, I'm going to say 99% of the time, you figure out a way in order to dramatize the facts, and it's going to be a million times better than anything that you can ever come up with, that you can make up. And in this case, look, an insurance lawyer being tabbed in order to do this. Hey, guess what? You're gonna defend this spy because nobody else wants to do it, and you're a good lawyer. So go ahead and go to town. All right. This might be interesting. So you can't beat it. You can't beat the truth.